So growing up, I was a PK. For those who don't know, a PK is a pastor's kid. And my dad was a Baptist minister in Illinois for a couple years at least. One of the things that sometimes pastors will get as a benefit, so to speak, of being a pastor is they get their housing provided in what's known as a parsonage. So this will be a house that's owned by the church that the family can stay in, the pastoral family can stay in. And we were living in a parsonage, and this was a kind of a unique situation in which the church and the house were right next to each other. I'm probably less than 15 feet apart from each other. And so it was kind of nice actually as a kid. I was about 13 or so, 12 or 13 at the time, and there was this large parking lot right outside that we could play in. And so, you know, we'd ride our bikes, skateboards, all of that around that parking lot, and didn't have to really worry about anybody complaining because, you know, my dad was the pastor of the church, so it just wasn't going to happen. Now, the church my dad was preaching at, it wasn't necessarily, I guess, the best of areas, and there were steps on the church that the kids would go and try and do tricks off of, or be hanging off, just sitting on, and doing, you know, what skateboarding kids would do. And I remember hearing that there were some complaints from some of the members of the church that they were having these skateboarders sitting on the steps and causing some problems. I don't know how much problems they were or not causing. I don't understand the whole thing that's going on. But I remember that was a complaint that was going on at the time. So I brought the complaint to my dad, but there really wasn't too much that he can do. But I remember overhearing this and just kind of thinking about that and taking note of it. So one day I was walking around the church, and again, it's basically the same property as where I live, so it wasn't unusual by any means. And I, sure enough, see a bunch of skateboarders sitting on the steps doing stuff. They really weren't, it wasn't like they're spray painting anything, but they were just sitting there. And trying to be a good, responsible person, I told them that they couldn't be sitting there. And again, I'm only 12 or 13 at the time. I tell them that this is private property, that they need to move on because they're not allowed to be sitting on the steps. And when I told them this, they all stood up and they walked towards me, and they started, you know, circling around me. And I just stood there, and they're kind of looking down at me. They're all older than I was, and, you know, asking me, you know, what'd you say, you know, that kind of, trying to be intimidating. And one of the kids, I guess he was probably the leader of this group, he actually pulled out a knife, and he kind of glanced down, and I followed his glance, and I saw the knife in his hand pointing at me. And so this kid with the knife, he looked at me and said, just go away and there's not going to be any problems. And I remember I just stood there and looked right back at him. I didn't flinch, I didn't have any reaction, and I said, I can't do that. You guys are the one that needs to be moving on. This is private property. So he just looked at me for about 3 seconds, it seemed longer, and said, you're an idiot, and they all left and walked away. And honestly, I didn't realize the whole situation. I didn't realize how stupid I was being until many years later, and realized that I should have just said, yeah, you're right, go on, I don't want to get stabbed. But, you know, I was 12 years old at the time, so we don't always do the smartest things at that age. But one of the things that this makes me think about is people try and theorize, you know, how am I going to react in various situations? They try to think, you know, if this was to happen, what's the response I'm going to have? And even having done that already, having been through that scenario, you know, you'll have some people who say, oh man, if somebody pull a knife on me, I'm going to go and knock it out of their hands, and, you know, I'm going to show them who's boss and try and act tough. I don't think that's very realistic. You'll have other people who are going to say that, oh, I'll just let them do whatever they want, I don't want to mess with a knife, and, you know, walk away. And that's probably more realistic, but I don't even know if that's always true. I mean, when you have situations like this, you freeze up and you don't necessarily think the correct way. And even having gone through this situation, it didn't really seem very scary until after the fact. I didn't realize the danger I was actually in until after all of this went down. And I don't think people can really judge how they're going to react in situations. I think you can try and prepare for it, and the more you prepare for it, the better you will be able to react. But unless you do prepare, how you're going to actually react in various situations is really going to come down to environment in the moment. And I think that's something that's important to remember, and that when we see people who make decisions in the news that we don't agree with, and we can't be judging them, and we've got to be careful about how we pass judgment on these people, and realize that we may have very well made the exact same decision if we were in their place. So those are just kind of my reflections on that experience. Now, if you like this video, I'm going to be trying and posting more of these on a regular basis, so please like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.